Tonight's instructor is Sunil Patel, a former physician and data specialist that founded Tekmetric shop management software in 2015. He helps shop owners grow organized and profitable businesses. The cybersecurity landscape, as you know, is evolving rapidly, and threats to your computer systems and data are genuine and could be devastating to your business. Sunil's presentation will help you leverage technology and tweak your procedures to protect your business and your customers from cybersecurity threats. Pay close attention tonight, take plenty of notes, and ask questions as Sunil moves along. Please enjoy tonight's class, everyone. It's now my pleasure to introduce you to Sunil.
Hi guys, thanks for joining tonight's class. I'm going to go over Cybersecurity 101, and it's going to be a basic overview of some things that I'm going to go over as far as major things that have happened in the industry, changes in the industry in cybersecurity, how you can protect your shop, changes you can make in your own shop, and then we'll be taking some questions towards the end of the presentation. With that being said, I'll get started and we'll get off with the presentation. Now, cybersecurity is a very vast subject. I'm not going to go too deep into the weeds of exactly how things happen. It's probably too complicated or a technical level. What I want to do is give you guys enough information to protect yourselves as shop owners and the data that you guys host, which is your customers' data. So cybersecurity is defined technically as the state of being protected against criminal and unauthorized use of electronic data or measures taken to achieve this. Some people have argued that as this news comes out, it's kind of somewhat of an overinflated topic. You know, media grabs onto something and then it's just something that the media keeps on repeating, and it's probably not something that people should worry about. Well, that could be true, but at the same time, we do have some things that we are obligated as shop owners to be mindful of. So what are the biggest things in cybersecurity that I want to talk about? One of the biggest things is that it's kind of a cryptic topic to talk about. You know, when shop owners hear cybersecurity, what does it really mean? Or what can you do as a shop owner? Yeah, you have a firewall and you bought your router from Best Buy and you feel like you're protected, right? But that's really not it. The biggest problem with cybersecurity is that it's not a tangible product or something you can touch and feel. It's not a broken axle on a vehicle that you can see. It's something that it's imagine somebody coming into your house without even ever seeing them. It's that kind of problem that the world faces right now. So some of the basic things I want to go over with cybersecurity is I'm going to kind of briefly touch upon some terminology, some key words. You guys may have heard of these words in the cybersecurity world, or whenever you go buy a router and so forth. So I'm not going to go too deep into the definitions of these, but some of the things that I want to talk about, or that some of the buzzwords that you're going to hear in 2020 and 2021 are as follows. IoT, which is Internet of Things. You guys may have noticed now, the more and more as time goes on, you guys are seeing devices connected to the internet, whether it's something as small as a coffee maker maybe, or your washer and dryer. A lot of the new devices out there that are coming out in the market are all connected. The one that comes to mind right now is the Amazon Dash button. It was a tiny little button that you could place on your fridge, for instance, and it could be a specific button for ordering groceries or ordering cereal. And when you push it, you'll get an order from Amazon. Those are all IoT devices. And the more and more we get connected in the world, the more and more there is a chance of vulnerabilities in our network. Now, port, IP address, host, and a couple of these others, I'm going to kind of combine a model that I kind of like using. And what I want you guys to imagine is your home. And in your home, you have a front door, you possibly have a fence, but let's just, for this purpose, imagine you have a fence around your house and you have a bunch of windows. And so what I want you to think about when you see an IP address, I want you to think about the physical address of your house. And that's the easiest way to describe what an IP address is. It is a unique designation of your address, your location, or the data that's coming from in and out of the internet is coming to your IP address on your modem. Now, you also have internal IP addresses on each device connected to your network, but instead of getting too complicated and getting too deep in the weeds, let's just assume your house has one IP address. Now, imagine every window on your house is the port. Now, certain pieces of data have to go to certain windows or ports. Port 80 is your typical port for transacting internet data for websites and so forth. So imagine that's your front door. And then you have port 21 and 25, and there's a bunch of other ports, and they go on and on and on. And there's certain specific ports used for certain specific types of traffic. The other things I wanted you to think about are firewall and port forwarding, or a couple other keywords I want to bring up right now. So imagine the outside fence around your house as the firewall. And you would imagine, or you would assume that that firewall, that fence, is protecting the data inside of that house. And so that firewall needs to be able to release data back and forth. And so you have to open ports, you have to open doors, allow that data to go back and forth. So when the data first comes from outside, it comes to your front fence. Your fence or your firewall has to forward that traffic over to the appropriate port on your house or the door in your house. And that's where port forwarding takes place. So whenever you have a firewall in place, some of you guys may have experienced this. You installed a security system in your house or your shop, and you can't see those security cameras from outside your shop. And that's because the port forwarding is not set up correctly or not set up at all. And that's why you can't see it. And I'm going to pass over these other definitions. We're going to touch upon a few of them during the presentation. Now, a couple of things I want to think about or talk about are some of the major attacks that happened in 2019. Now, some of these are fairly large attacks, but I just want to bring these up because any one of us could have been held ransom for data, or known as ransomware and so forth. So before I get into the details of that, Lake City, Florida. Lake City, Florida had a city department, a municipal department recently in last year that was in charge of all of their wastewater, water sewage treatment and so forth. And so they were in charge of basically giving the invoices to their residents in Lake City, Florida. Lake City, Florida did not have proper systems in place. They didn't have backups in place. Somebody in their organization in the city opened a piece of email that essentially launched a ransomware attack, and it actually locked every single computer on the network. Now, you may have seen some of these attacks before. The most common one is called WannaCry. It makes you want to cry, actually. Ultimately, what Lake City, Florida had to do was they had to pay a ransom of $460,000 to the people that were holding that data encrypted on their systems. There was no way to unlock it, and the criminals were the only ones who were able to unlock it. And they actually paid $460,000 in Bitcoin to this foreign entity. Atlanta police, similar attack happened. 30,000 PCs across their entire city, all of the patrol cars and so forth. They fortunately had a plan in place that would basically turn the clock back and essentially remove the piece of ransomware. Now, a lot of us are asking, why does this happen to us? Why do people give us ransomware attacks? Why are people interested in this information? The biggest reason is money, right? If your data is locked, for instance, you have family pictures on your laptop for the last 15 years, it's probably worth something to you, right? And if that hard drive was permanently locked and you have no backup of it, then there's a good chance that you're willing to fork over some money to unlock it to get those memories back. But you know, in the auto repair business, in the auto repair industry, it's usually just a random form of attack. You'll get a piece of email, it locks your computer up. You have a couple of options here. You could either pay the ransom and try to get it unlocked, if they will even unlock it, or you can just refresh your computer, install Windows all over again, and hope that it doesn't happen again. The other reasons, there really are no good reasons I can give you right now why this happens. Now, larger sets of data, credit card data, cities and so forth, like I had mentioned earlier, those are large organizations where that data is worth something. And in the shop environment, you have a customer list, but it's not something that you can really sell out on the dark web, is what they call it. So on the free market or the dark web, it's not really worth anything on the open market. Even if you have 5 or 10,000 customers, 20,000 customers, it's just not worth anything to most people on the open market. Now, yes, it will cripple your business, obviously. And then in the past, when I've given this presentation, I've been asked, is it possible another shop owner could possibly do this? Chances are probably not. It is a criminal offense to begin with. I don't see it happening, to be honest with you. I just don't see an average shop owner having the technology and the skill set on doing something like this to another shop owner. So a couple of things that I want to mention are, vehicles. Cybersecurity does involve vehicles too now. Vehicles are getting smarter and smarter as time goes on. You must have seen, by now, most vehicles have wireless LAN built in, which is, again, a gateway to the vehicle's electrical system. I'm going to talk about a couple incidents, I think, on the next slide. But before I get there, I want you to see this picture here. As vehicles' electrical system or vehicles' systems get electrified, it is easier to control them remotely. And what I mean by that is you'll notice that as, over the last decade, you'll see that hydraulic power steering is not really much of a thing anymore. People have moved to electronic power steering, or EPS. But being EPS, it allows some benefits on ADAS systems, controlling your steering, staying in your lane. But at the same time, it also allows the ability of a remote or malicious person to take control of that steering wheel. And we'll see that as more and more systems get electrified, including your braking system. Tesla is the one that comes to mind just off the top of my head. They are probably one of the most advanced as far as autonomous driving systems go. Their vehicles are pretty well, being able to drive on their own. I can't think of an instance where Tesla has been hacked and somebody took it over, but that has happened on I can't remember which model Jeep it was, but there was a Jeep vehicle where it was remotely taken over, and actually Jeep implemented a nationwide recall on updating their wireless LAN systems to avoid this. Now, the term that is being used now, similar to hijacking a plane, is called vehicle jacking. Like I said before, as vehicles get more and more electrified, as they get more and more advanced, you are able to take over those vehicles remotely. DARPA is an arm of our government, which essentially pays people to build technology. And DARPA funded a hacking competition in 2014 to see how easy it was to take over a vehicle. And so somebody had implemented a piece of software code on a Chevy Impala, and it essentially took over the entire vehicle over wireless LAN. And that was just proof to vehicle manufacturers in the US that that's how easy it is to take over a vehicle. And since then, a lot of things have changed, obviously, but that was just an experiment in 2014 funded by the US government that was to prove to vehicle manufacturers that this could happen. Now, like I said before, ransomware is the most common type of attack. There are a lot of different types of cyber attacks out there. Denial of service is another one. And so, but the one I want to talk about mostly is the ransomware attacks. And it's what it is basically is you get the most common way you get this is you get a piece of email, not knowing who that email is from, you click on a link. When you click on a link, you've instantly downloaded a piece of software that is going to essentially encrypt your hard drive in a matter of seconds. And there's no way to reverse it. There are some features in Microsoft Windows and a few other OSs that allow you to revert or to go back in time pre-clicking that link that will help you out. But it's something that you have to be very careful of. I used to work at another company several years ago where one of our employees had clicked on that link and it essentially encrypted his entire hard drive. There was no way. In fact, I remember the owner of that company actually paid the ransom and they still didn't unlock the computer. So most common form of payment on a ransomware attack is usually a wire transfer or a Bitcoin, something that's kind of untraceable is the most common method of payment. Now, some of the other things, although it doesn't really pertain to cybersecurity in depth, but some of the things that I wanted to kind of cover is employee theft. I mean, that is another leak in data in your business that you have to be cognizant and careful about. Employees copying or stealing shop information, shop data, customer lists, and so forth. Credit card skimming is another one. I ran a shop for about 10 years here in Houston, Texas, mainly European. I had a employee, I'll never forget him, and he actually had a little device where he would keep in his pocket, and when a customer handed him a payment, he would swipe it on our credit card machine to take payment, but then he would swipe it on his device also, and what it did was it basically captured the card data that he would use later to write another credit card, and he would basically go purchase things. We eventually caught him over time with surveillance and a few other things, and ultimately he was fired, obviously, but credit card skimming is a real thing. It usually happens at ATM machines and gas stations, but it can easily happen at a repair facility just as well. Outdated firewall is the third thing. This is one of the things where people feel that they are protected because they have a firewall. Firewalls require constant updating of the software that is on the firewall, because as new and new issues come up for vulnerabilities in the system, the manufacturers of these firewalls eventually over time will build patches and updates. Too many holes in infrastructure. And what I mean by that is a lot of shop owners have implemented, they have a closet or something where they have a network switch, and then they have a bunch of wires going out with a bunch of Ethernet jacks. Now, typically you don't want to leave any live Ethernet jacks or connections outside in your building or anywhere that's easily accessible so somebody can actually tap into your network. So you want to be careful of that. You don't want any heavy connections that are not connected. For instance, you have a jack near a desk that is not being used. You might want to just unplug it from the switch also. And that way it's not an avenue for somebody to plug into, with a laptop or something to get data from you. Now, I'm going to briefly touch upon this because, we run Tekmetric, which is a cloud-based shop management system, and we see this a lot whenever we do data migration. And this is a big no-no, and I just want to bring this up. And what this is PII, or personally identifiable information. Anytime you have information on an individual that makes you identify that individual, and it could be a combination of these things. It could be a name, a driver's license, a date of birth, an address, a social security number, a credit card number, whatever it is. It could be a combination of these things. We typically see this information stored in the customer notes section of your shop management system. And whenever we migrate the data into Tekmetric, we notice that, and we usually wipe it out, and we let shop owners know that we're wiping this data out. It's not going to be migrated over to Tekmetric. The reason I say that is because when you store PII, or personal identifiable information, it makes you, the shop owner, liable for anything that could happen to that customer. So I just want to be careful. You guys, you shouldn't store any kind of information like DOB, which is a new one. A lot of old shop management systems used to store or had a field for date of birth, and it was simply just to mail out a gift card to a customer. But as time has gone on, it's become one of the PII items where you don't want to store date of births. The other one I've seen common, credit card numbers. I've seen credit card numbers stored in customer note fields. Regular customers that don't want to be bothered, a customer notes field is not the place to store credit card information because it's not encrypted or anything at all. Now, I wanted to show you guys a couple of sample emails that Greg Bunch at Mastermind Transformers Group got, and he forwarded them over to me. So just look at this email real quick. It came over to Aspen Auto Clinic from some place called KDS Lab _order at kdslab.jp, which is a Japanese address. And it says that you have 8 messages in quarantine, and to view these messages, there's a blue link that says review. Now, if Greg was to click that link, there's a good chance a piece of software is going to get downloaded and lock his computer. And this is exactly what I was talking about. Now, typically, if you were to just hover over the link, not clicking on it, just hover over the link with your mouse. You will see where that link is going. And if you don't recognize where that address is coming from, don't even bother clicking on that link at all. Opening the email does not generally do anything, but clicking on the link of that email is going to cause problems. Here's another one, similar issue. I have no idea how to pronounce that even, but somebody sent this email again, and there's some stating that there's a fax document available, and you can preview that fax message by clicking on that link, and the same thing is going to happen again, probably locking that computer. Now, what can we do as shop owners? I want you guys to have some takeaways from this presentation. So one of the things you can definitely do is change the default password of your router. You guys should all not use the default password that your router comes with or modem comes with. Logitech or not, there's a bunch of manufacturers out there. I can't think of, I have a brain fart right now, but they usually have the manufacturer name, or it's admin and admin as the username and password. Those should definitely be changed as the first order of business when you finish this presentation. Your firewall or router always, typically, at least the later ones, it's much easier to update, but they always have an update feature. The older models require you to go to the website, download a piece of software, find the file, upload it into the router. The newer ones just simply have a button that you click and it says update. So make sure your router or firewall is always updated. Now, there are something I want to touch upon real quick is the wireless network. Wireless networks you should define or segment your wireless networks. You should not have a wireless network in your building for everyone, meaning your employees and your guests. They should be two separate networks. And the reason I say that is that most modern routers or wireless routers have the ability to separate the traffic from a guest network to the backhouse network. And in fact, your backhouse network should not be shared with employees on their cell phones. Your employees, for using their cell phones, should be on the guest network also. Your private network or your wireless network at your shop is strictly for transacting business, and that's all it should be. That's the cleanest and the simplest and the easiest way to make sure that everything goes smooth in your shop and you don't have any hiccups. Now, if you have a router or firewall that is more than, I want to say, 7 years old, there's a good chance that it's an outdated piece of technology. And the reason I say that is that wireless standards have changed over time. When you set up your wireless network, it's going to ask you, should you do WPA, PSK, or there's so many different variables of this, enterprise or personal and so forth. There are revisions to the wireless networking protocol, which have basically blocked any holes or gaps in the older protocol. So you should always have a more modern, newer wireless router or device. Now, ensure all your computers are up to date. I know it's annoying, and especially on Windows machines, you always get that annoying little thing that pops up on the bottom of your screen that indicates that you have a Windows update or a patch that needs to be done. As annoying as it is, the reason why that patch is there is because there is an update that needs to be done, that needs to be taken care of. And you should always make sure that your Windows systems are always up to date. Stay with the times. Again, what I mean by that is, if you have a computer that's 15 years old, it's probably running on an old version of Microsoft Windows that is no longer supported by Microsoft, like Windows XP. There are no patches being made for older operating systems, and Microsoft always releases dates when they're going to cancel support on operating systems. Now, one of the last things I want to go over is, being in the shop management space, I want to go over the differences between a cloud-based shop management system and an on-premise system. Now, an on-premise system, what I mean by that are some of the legacy older systems like Mitchell, RO Writer, WinWorks. Some of those are the older legacy systems where you are receiving a piece of a disk or a USB stick, or you're downloading a piece of software and you're installing it on your local computer. You're relying on the security of your local computer's hardware in order to stay protected. A cloud-based system like Tekmetric, or there's a few other ones out there too, it's basically using state-of-the-art technology. And the reason I say that is that our software Tekmetric is hosted on AWS or Amazon Web Services. They use state-of-the-art technology for their security. And in fact, Amazon owns probably the lion's share of the cloud-based market worldwide. And most banks also trust Amazon for security. So you can also trust, a newer, more modern cloud-based shop management system for that purpose. The second thing I want to talk about is updates. Typically, older shop management systems or legacy systems require you to update with a downloadable piece of software, a CD, a DVD, whatever it is. You are responsible for those updates. Being cloud-based, you don't have to worry about that at all. Updates are done remotely. When you log into a cloud-based shop management system, you already have the latest version of the system. So you never have to worry about that. The other aspect of on-prem systems is that you may also require to be updating your operating system, whereas cloud-based systems don't require those kind of updates. And in fact, they're agnostic of what device or hardware you use. True cloud-based systems, you can open a web browser and you can start using the system no matter where you are on the world. It's backed up automatically. Amazon is backed up with multiple sites, what we call it. So your data is always protected in real time. On-prem systems require manual backups always. We had Hurricane Harvey here in Houston several years ago, and I know for a fact that several shops went underwater, their data was gone. And having a backup drive sitting on top of your computer to back up your data is not a good backup plan. You should be backing up remotely if you're using an on-prem system, because a disaster can strike anywhere. So that pretty much covers our presentation for cybersecurity. We are ready to take questions and answers.
Hey, thanks, Sunil. I had a question about the name, address, date of birth, and so forth. I mean, doesn't a shop have to keep a name and address on file?
Yeah.
And what about a VIN as well? Is that suspect?
So VIN is not suspect. VIN is not considered part of PII, and a name and address is. And I got to go back into my notes and check, but a name and address alone is not something that you can use to identify a person. It would also require a date of birth. So you would have to have a name, address, and a date of birth to be considered PII. But it's just the more information that you have of a person, the easier it is to identify that particular person, and that's why I just, any combination of those things.
Okay. And in terms of just updating software and so forth, is that the patches and so forth, is that all you have to do? In other words, if your technology is up to speed, is there anything else to keep ransomware out? Are there any software packages that work to help any of that stuff?
I don't want to recommend a product by any means. I mean, Microsoft has their own suite of protection called Microsoft Essentials, which we've used in the past on Windows machines. Our company is all Mac. But at the end of the day, it's just training your staff to be careful about clicking on links that they're not familiar with. Just don't believe what the email says. If it's coming from an address where you don't recognize that email, I probably wouldn't click it. Okay. The other thing I want to mention is that more modern email places like Yahoo or Google, they automatically filter these kind of messages for you. So you don't have to worry about typically receiving these kind of messages. But if you're using a traditional older style inbox, for instance, GoDaddy, where they don't have any kind of content filtering or spam filtering, you're going to run into this issue where you're going to get a bunch of junk email commonly. When Google does a great job on filtering junk email content.
Okay. Thomas is asking, does the constant update of Firewall take storage on your computer, or does a new update overwrite the old?
Great question, Thomas. So There are two firewalls, and I want to talk about that. The first firewall is the one that is located on your router, and that update will never take up any space on your computer. You're updating what we call the firmware, or the software that is running that router on the router. And so that update will take care of the router. Now, your computer itself also has a firewall built in, because you could be in a network, imagine an airport, for instance, and you're on the same network as 100 other people. You don't want somebody else looking into your laptops. You have a firewall on. And so that update typically does take up space, but we're not talking about any amount of space that is anything to be worried about by any means.
Okay, great. Do you recommend cyber insurance? If so, should we cover? Mainly for customer information.
Yeah, as time has gone on.
What should we cover? I'm sorry, what should we cover?
So I'm not sure exactly how everyone's policies work, but I can tell you that we did have cyber insurance in our at Motorworks in Houston. I just had it because I did not want to be held liable in case there was leakage of data and it hit the news or whatever happened. And it was such a negligible amount of money. I just took it anyway. I never had to use it, but I just had it. I'm not sure how everyone's policies work, but it's better to have more coverage than less.
Okay. Is there anything in particular? Lisa's asking, if so, what should we cover? Is there anything in particular about cyber insurance that would be of note?
The main thing is protecting your customers. So anything that you can do to protect your customers is probably the best policy you can get. I mean, as far as your own computer getting ransomware, it getting locked, whatever the case might be, I think we can all recover from those things. But anytime you're hitting your customers' data, that would be probably the best thing I'd take out of that is whatever policy or addendum to your insurance policy that's going to fix or take care of customer information.
Okay. Monica says she still has the old Windows 7 and my computer keeps telling me that I have to update. Do I have to buy a new computer?
I believe, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Windows 7 is still supported. XP is no longer supported. And Windows 7 has an expiration date. I'm not sure exactly when it is, but if you can just Google it, you can find out when support is going to cease for Microsoft. But Windows 7 still, as far as I know, I think it's still fine.
Okay. Here's a question I've always was concerned about or thought about. Should I shut off my computer every night, or can I just put it to sleep? Sorry.
You can just put it. I think putting it to sleep is fine. There are features in your computer that will be, remote wake on LAN, and there's a few other features that you can enable if you want to turn it on remotely. So if you turn it on or if you leave it on, yes, it is potentially a target. But I've never heard of anybody, I personally don't know of anybody that's getting hacked because they left their computer on, for instance. I mean, I think if it's going to happen, if somebody wants some data, they're going to get it, whether it's on during the day or at night. So I don't know if that's going to really help.
Okay, James is asking, is it best just to not store credit card numbers?
That would be the number one thing. Yeah, storing credit card numbers is a big no-no, and that goes against all compliance, no matter which industry you look at. Storing credit cards, and I don't see any reason why you would have to store a customer's driver's license number, but credit cards would be the biggest thing.
Okay. Should I be concerned about mobile devices connected to my Wi-Fi network with regards to potential malware being downloaded to phones?
There is malware available for phones, which can lock your phone. It is not so common. I personally don't know of anybody who's been attacked by malware on a phone. So again, it's one of those things. If you can segregate your networks, if you can keep your business network for business and your guest network for all of your other employees surfing on their phones and whatnot, that would give you a lot of protection.
Is it better to have multiple routers for guests and employees, or are there single routers that can do the same feature?
In the old days, when I say old days, more than maybe 6 years ago, you would probably have to have two routers. But as far as I know, most of the modern routers out there, if you go to Best Buy right now and buy one, you're going to find that it has the ability to have a guest network and a internal private network separately. And you can name them separately too as wireless networks. So you could have guest Wi-Fi and company Wi-Fi. And as far as I know, both most routers offer both features. There is one other question that had come up in the past. A lot of routers have the ability to hide what we call your SSID, which is the ID that is being broadcasted by your wireless router that shows what Wi-Fi to connect to. For instance, Bob's Garage may have named it as Bob's Garage Wi-Fi. And you have the ability to hide it. Hiding a wireless or SSID provides absolutely zero protection against you. So it doesn't matter at all. There's so many ways you can sniff out wireless IDs out there. So hiding an ID doesn't do anything.
Okay. We are new to Tekmetric and have had a server that housed Mitchell and QuickBooks. We were held for ransomware about 4 years ago, and this prompted us to hire an IT company that monitors all of our computers and our IP address for sizable monthly expense. Is this necessary with cloud-based? And once I move to QB online, if we keep an updated firewall?
I would probably, okay, I'll answer it this way. Well, first of all, thank you for being a Tekmetric customer. Second, I see this a lot where shop owners have a third-party IT company managing their network, and they're spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars to ensure its security. I would say this, that if you are cloud-based and if your QuickBooks is on the cloud and your shop management system is on the cloud, which are the two key pieces that run your business, I would probably say, if it was me, I would not hire a third-party person. As long as I'm making sure that all of my computers are up to date on a regular basis, or automatic updates are enabled in Windows. If you're a Windows person, there's a feature in there that'll automatically update the software for you. I would probably not have paid a third-party person to do that. And in fact, we've seen this a lot. Shop owners will get rid of those IT companies that are managing their networks, because in traditional on-prem systems like Mitchell or AutoWriter, you have a server that you're paying for, you have the networking involved, you have all the client computers, and it could get complex and you need an IT company to manage this infrastructure. But being cloud-based, you want to make it very simple. And in our company at Motorworks, we had a very extensive network. We had server racks with servers, and we had virtualization on the servers. And I mean, we went a little overboard. But honestly, at the end of the day, as a shop owner, I just want what's easy. I want what's simple. I want what protects my users from malware and stuff. And I don't want to deal with the headache of infrastructure and servers. So what we did was, we basically, in the IT world, we flattened our network. So we have a network switch and we have all of our computers connected to it, and that's it. Got the server out of there, don't need it anymore. As long as my computer has internet access, that's all I need. I don't need anything else to make this work. And so that's one of the beauties of being cloud-based.
Okay, terrific. Do newer Wi-Fi standards, Wi-Fi 6, etc., offer more protection, or are they just about speed?
So it's both. So as some of you guys may know, that wireless protocols have changed over time. You have WPA, and then you have WPA PSK, and then you have enterprise version of that. And then you have WEP, which is one of the older ones. WEP is no longer supported, and you should not be using it as a wireless protocol. You should be using WPA PSK as a wireless protocol to lock your network down. Now, as time has gone on, they have made it more different. For instance, WEP, you could have a simple word password. You could have free Wi-Fi as your password. And then as the protocols have changed, not only has the technology that connects device to device changed, which makes it harder and more encrypted, but the standards that you have to keep a password have changed as well. And then along with that, you obviously have speed increases as technology changes, like 802.11n and G and so forth. So it's not just the speed; it's actually a lot of it has to do with the encryption and security.
Okay, this is a little bit of a tricky question, possibly. What's the percentage of customer info risk from local storage to cloud?
That's a tough one. I don't know if I can give you an honest answer on that. Yeah, because it's going to be tough to get stats on stuff like that. I mean, I can tell you dozens of customers that have told me before they moved over to Tekmetric on the issues they had with an on-prem system. But know this, that most of the time people are not interested in shop data. It's not a target. Shop owners are not an active target for data. The biggest reasons why I would go to the cloud would be just the simplicity, peace of mind, no server architecture required, reduced infrastructure in your shop, lowering your cost, and it's just easier. It's simpler. You can get to it from anywhere. You're not using any kind of remote access system like GoToMeeting or anything. You got to log into a computer at your shop, and then your experience is horrible. And then you got to make sure nobody else touches that computer at your office. And whereas being in the cloud, you could be in Africa, as long as you have internet access, you're golden. It doesn't matter. And your experience is exactly the same as you were in the office.
Here's an interesting comment from an attendee here. At most dealerships, no employee is connected to the network. Everyone is on the guest network. So that sounds like a security measure there that's worth looking at. If Bitcoin is untraceable, why is it out there?
That's probably a topic we can take for another webinar, but I mean, it is a form of payment that's gaining traction just partially because of its ability to its encryption level. Its high security encryption level is one of the biggest reasons why it's out there. And there's a bunch of other cyber payment forms out there too now.
Can someone hack your system using the guest Wi-Fi access?
I mean, I guess at the end of the day, anything's possible. I would have to err on the side of it's not so easy, because guest networks will have a whole separate set of IP addresses issued to them also. So they're not commingling data back and forth. You're on two separate networks. And so you can't go on the guest network and access information on the private network. So I would probably have to say it's slim.
Okay. Can I ask you, Sunil, to forward to the last screen while we have a few more last questions here, please?
Sure can.
If a cloud-based system gets hacked and we have customer information stolen, who is responsible?
So that would be us. And we have insurance to protect us for measures like that. And as we've continued to grow, our policies have increased to ensure that you guys are protected as shop owners and your customers. So that goes to say with any cloud-based provider, whether it's your bank or anything else like that. So we have certain things that we take as far as measures go to ensure that your data is secure. And then we have major enterprise clients on our platform too, and there's certain things that they require to make sure testing is done for penetration and ensuring that we're up to speed on the latest standards. And I mean, we have to take it up a little bit, up a notch, I guess you could say, as far as security goes, just because we have so much data that we're storing in our systems.
Okay, should I be concerned about mobile devices connected to my Wi-Fi network with regards to potential malware being downloaded to phones? Or did I give that one already, maybe?
I think you already got that one.
Yep, okay. All right, well, I think that takes care of the questions here. Our last attendee here says, thank you, Sunil, great information. We are loving Tekmetric. So thank you. I want to say thank you to Julie Massaro from ASA Colorado for coming out to introduce Sunil. And Sunil, thank you so much for taking the time to give us this terrific, great information. A lot of good stuff there for customers to think about.